Welcome to Profiles in Eccentricity, a show about weirdos. With your hosts, John Fahey, Aaron Peter, and Matt Brousseau.
Hello, folks. Welcome to Profiles in Eccentricity. It's a show about weirdos, doggone it. My name is John Fahey. Joining me as ever, prettiest boy under the sun, celebrating a birthday, the absolutely glorious to behold, Mr. Aaron Joseph Peter.
Hi.
What's up, you birthday slut?
I'm 34. I'm just a baby.
You're a MILF, you bitch.
Yeah. I outlive Jesus and Bill Hicks. Fuck them.
Fuck him. Fuck him.
Fuck them.
Yeah.
Fucking assholes.
It's the tortoise and the hare.
Yeah.
To his right, my left, another absolutely glorious human being, the North Star of human morality, Mr. Matthew Brousseau. How are you?
I'm doing great, guys.
Yeah.
I'm fucking tired, but I'm doing great.
Right,
Yeah.
right. But we're gonna have.
You don't look tired.
We're gonna have a great time going. We're going to this crazy cabin.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're if you guys haven't heard, we're going up to this cabin. There's no electricity. There's no cell phone reception.
No one can hear us scream.
There is a landline. You can call us.
We
Day or
should
night.
put the number out.
No, we
When is this?
No. I guess they'll fucking be
All right,
calling.
but we will say that if one of you gets a listener gets a phone call from a 916 area code,
I think so. Yeah, that sounds.
it's
Yeah.
gonna be us. Here, can I try something out? I'm not gonna give out any phone numbers.
Try it out.
But if any of you
Give us
wanna
your phone number.
Instagram DM us
Yeah.
your phone number.
You gotta follow us on Instagram first. Profiles in
Yeah.
Eccentricity.
Exactly.
You want to
That
see these
helps.
fucking weirdos people?
Follow
Come on.
at Profiles in Eccentricity on Instagram, at John Fahey, at Pistol Peta,
Mm-hmm.
at Capital
Capital City.
City
INC.
INC. That's Matt.
Mm-hmm.
Still don't know what that means.
Nobody knows.
Follow him on Instagram. Follow us on Instagram. Direct message us
Your phone number.
your phone number.
Yeah, we'll
and
give you.
we will call you from a landline.
and we'll say we'll tuck you in.
Yeah.
If you're going to bed, whatever time it is, we'll call you.
Tuck you in.
We'll tuck you in.
We'll tell you a little a bedtime story.
Yeah, and we'll be like fucking weird from being like alone up there and
Oh.
like out of touch with the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know how I get off the
We're
internet.
gonna call you asking for what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we're going up there the day this is coming out.
Right. We're recording
Some
this.
of now.
This is
Yeah.
So-
And you'll have to tell us like, the nutty shit Trump did or whatever.
Yeah. What did Cohen say?
yeah.
Yeah. That'll be fun.
This episode's gonna be posted as we're getting to the cabin, pretty much.
Right.
Yeah.
So send us a message, try it out.
Yeah. And please follow us on YouTube as well. You can see little videos now of us
Yeah.
recording the show. Pretty exciting. Love you, sluts. And there's whole episodes up there that don't have video yet, but we'll get to that eventually. There is also our fabulous Patreon, where now we've started doing a music show, Chopped Up Jukebox.
Chopped Up Jukebox. We're going to record a couple episodes up there. Not coming out this week, but we got some. Who knows what the fuck we're going to do when we're up there recording that shit.
We also do like an extra profile, regular type episode on the Patreon, and soon to come, Aaron's Explains All show.
Oh yes.
Really looking forward to
Aaron
that.
explains it all.
Aaron explains it all.
I just talked to the camera.
But yeah, Aaron's gonna go deep into some like weird nerdy shit that you do a great job of explaining. I always say that
Thank you.
you're an incredibly talented explainer,
Thank you.
and you make the mundane very interesting.
That's very very.
And
sweet of you.
I don't give a shit when you start talking about something because you say what you're talking about, and then as you continue, I'm so interested.
That's so nice
You know
of
what I mean?
Yeah.
You started talking about sliders the other day on the way
Yeah.
home from work.
The TV show Sliders.
Oh, okay.
Not
Yeah.
the burger
Yeah,
item.
I'm interested either
And
way.
then I was like, oh, that show sounds like it sucks so bad. And then I was like reading articles about it
Yeah.
and stuff, and I was really interested. Anyway.
I mean, it did suck, but I found a way to.
Well, yeah, that's the thing is that
Right.
you talking about it is better than watching the show. So,
Yeah.
same thing with like you explaining Batman Forever.
Batman Forever.
Don't watch a bad Batman Forever movie, but listen to Aaron talk about it. So
Yeah.
that's all going to be coming out on the Patreon. We're expanding the Profiles universe, as it were.
Right. We've also
yes, yes.
discussed. We've also discussed something kind of like a scumbag director's commentary tracks
Yeah.
of us talking through various
Right, if you
motion
want
pictures.
to put on a movie, you
Yeah.
can listen along with us. It's
Yeah.
something we're
So if
eventually
that's something that you think might be cool, let us know.
Yeah.
And we'll.
Does that sound like something you might be interested in?
Is that something you might be interested in?
Yeah.
It
Today we have the first of a two-parter from young Matt Brousseau.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear what the second part will sound like when we're all.
Now, what you're doing here today is basically laying the groundwork
Yes.
for the second half. So
Yes.
let's get into the world.
You're giving us some hardcore context.
Yeah.
Yes. Carlin context. So, I forget where the fuck I heard about this person, but as soon as I heard about them, they sounded interesting. And then I read this book called Other Powers by Barbara Goldsmith that was about this person's life and the way it intertwined with almost every insane thing that was happening in 19th century America. Okay. So 19th century America, right? The invention of the steel plow, the steam thresher, transatlantic crossing with steamships, telegraph. The telegraph was a major invention, and following the Civil War,
Right.
where so many people had entire towns of men die.
Right.
Right.
And all
The
of a sudden,
Industrial Revolution after a huge depopulation.
Right. A lot of sad telegraphs going around. There's a lot of bad news to spread.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it also means people don't know how any of this shit works. They know there's all these dead people out there, but here's all these magic wires bringing communications from anywhere. So maybe a lot more is possible than we ever imagined.
Right.
And things are emerging like mesmerism, healing with magnetic energy.
Right.
And so invisible energy was everywhere, and apparently it worked.
Yeah.
But also, we still weren't very close to each other. I was reading about Emily Dickinson, and she's a total fucking weirdo, sure, but she was homesick when she went to college, and where she lived was 10 miles away.
Yeah.
She was homesick.
Yeah. You had to get over a fucking couple of acres of dead bodies to get home.
Right.
And maybe she was just sick.
So there's a lot of things, but I want to first start with one of the most famous families in America in the 18th century. A family that drove so much of American beliefs about selves and others and spirituality. And so this first brief, I want to talk about the Beecher family. The Beecher family was this family of preachers that dominated a religion for a lot of America, maybe most of America in that century. And so as America was shifting and all these immigrants were coming in, the religion started shifting, and they started moving from a strict Puritanism to this new Calvinism. And it was a religion that said you had some control over your life, and that if you were virtuous, God would notice. Not everything was set in stone from the beginning. You could escape damnation if you wanted to, which is very exciting.
Hey, I'll buy that for $1.
And so I begin with the patriarch of the Beecher family, Lyman Beecher. He had 3 wives. They all died before he did, and with them he had 13 children.
Oh, my God.
Mm-hmm. He was their father. He was the original New Age preacher in America. New Calvinism. The church, the Presbyterian Church, held a synod to tell him he was awful, and he gave such a good speech that they said, all right, maybe it's not so bad.
Huh.
From him, we get Harriet Beecher Stowe, the woman who wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin, who purportedly, according to this apocryphal history that evolved after she died, President Lincoln, when he met her, he said, oh, is this the little woman that started the Great War? But the story really isn't true. But it's a fun anecdote about her life.
Right. He didn't really meet her or call her a
They
little
did
woman.
meet in Washington, D.C.,
Got it.
but her records of that meeting, there was nothing interesting that she wrote home about it.
Right.
She just wrote that she was excited to be in D.C. because her son's regiment was near the area.
Huh.
So she just wrote that she met the man, but not that story. And then years later, her son would tell of this story that the family would...
Play it up a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also from the Beechers was Catherine Beecher. She was an advocate for kindergarten, one of the first people to advocate for children being taught stuff. And she was also an advocate for limiting female education. She said they should be taught to build men up.
They?
Yes, women should
We?
Women should all well. But here's the thing.
It's not wrong.
She was also an advocate for women.
We should be building each other up, I'll say.
Well, no, she didn't go that far.
Oh, well,
she was an advocate for women learning enough to build men up, to make good men, and also advocate for women breeding a lot. And for her entire life, she was an unmarried virgin.
Oh, my God.
Ah.
Weird.
Maybe I learned too much to get pregnant. Fuck.
This is what she wrote in 1841, and
So the rest of you gotta keep up.
pretty much. She was going to marry someone, and he died, and she's like, I'm done.
I got smart enough to teach you to be dumb, to be not
Young
alone
and full of
like me.
Yes.
I'm old, smart, and barren, but you could be young, dumb, and full of cum.
Free from responsibility.
That's a good summary. I mean, I'm going to read a passage she wrote, but that's a good summary.
Hey, what you gotta imagine?
So this is what she wrote in 1841 in a treatise on domestic economy for the use of young ladies at home and at school. She writes, "The physical and domestic education of daughters should occupy the principal attention of mothers, and the stimulation of the intellect should be very much reduced. Much less time should be given to school and much more to domestic employments. Those who have the most important duties of society to perform, men, should have well-disciplined, well-informed minds."
Okay.
This was a woman writing this.
But how do you be also dumb and know how to build up a man?
Well, you just have to trick the man into...
But that sounds like it reeks of smarts.
Well,
Right. I think there's a difference between being dumb and being uneducated, right? And so I think she's emphasizing a different kind of education. I think she's probably recognizing during this time, it's safe to say that an education would be wasted on many women because they would not have a chance to utilize it.
and if they go into the wild where all these men are,
Well, then they'll just get eaten alive or whatever.
and we're going to cover a lot of things over these next 2 episodes that will kind of work through those veins of what happens with when women learn things.
Right.
Uh-oh.
Another Beecher from that family was Isabella Beecher. She came out of her shell at age 40, and she was an important figure in the women's suffrage movement until she died in 1907. And most of the men became preachers of sorts, and the most famous was Henry Ward Beecher. And Barbara Goldsmith writes him, she describes him as the fourth and dullest of Lyman's 6 sons. Not inspiring.
Would have made a fine woman.
Beach.
And
What a fine woman you would have made.
You seem.
If only we could shave down that Adam's apple.
Oh, God.
during his lifetime, he'd become the most famous preacher in the country and even famous overseas.
The duller one?
Yep.
Yeah.
He would raise money to buy slaves and free them. He would raise money to buy rifles for the Union. He would tour Europe during the Civil War to promote the Union cause. And yet, his marriage is very emblematic of marriages at the time and women's roles at the time, especially for middle class and upper middle class families. He met his wife Eunice at Amherst College in 1830. She was the attractive daughter of a doctor, a very stern man. One time she sat down to dinner in a silk dress. He thought it was too low cut, so he threw a pot of soup at her.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
What? Who are these guys?
You gotta teach the men to, not throw the soup.
Well, you got to raise better men. I mean, she's right about that. Who are these assholes throwing soup at women in a
The dad threw the soup.
Yeah, the dad threw the soup.
Not dull Henry
Not
Ward
dull,
Beecher.
the dad
the
threw
dad
this.
threw
Oh,
the dad
what
threw
a
the
son
soup.
of a bitch.
Yeah, this doctor. Stern
The
old
doctor.
doctor, yeah. And that was his daughter he threw soup at.
Yes.
There's nothing good about that.
No.
She goes off to college. She meets Henry Ward Beecher. They have a 6-year courtship where, during the time, maybe he fucked his best friend and realized he couldn't have that, and so
He fucked his best friend?
Maybe they were really. It's one of those things. They were really close.
Right.
They would hold hands in public, which wasn't absurd back then.
Of course.
Two fellas holding hands.
Yeah.
Wow.
Hey, nice hands, nice hands.
Sure, yeah. Plus, if you're a dull fella, you need to know where you're going.
You show me.
I don't know much about what's going on here. You wouldn't mind leading me around by the hand, would you? and be my best friend? Maybe my lover, too? Oh, too much? I'm sorry.
We could try it out. Yeah, I don't know if you know about this new Calvinism, but the Lord will forgive you.
Yes, well, he will take up that mantle very strongly.
Nice.
They have a 6-year courtship, and after they marry, they move to Indianapolis in 1839 during a malaria outbreak. He doesn't tell her about the malaria because he was afraid she wouldn't make the move.
He wasn't that dull, was he?
Yeah.
I'm going to keep this card to myself.
She was pregnant at the time, and he was worried that she wouldn't move because of the kid.
Yeah.
And the first baby arrived stillborn.
Jesus.
Oh.
They would have another kid. That one died after 15 months.
No.
Over the next 5 years, she would be pregnant multiple times every year and only produce 3 living children.
Yeah, she's got the malaria womb.
Yeah, during this time...
Would they teach her to read or something?
That's probably what it was. They would have 3 living kids, and during this time, she would, because of all these repeated pregnancies and births, she would age twice as fast physically than... There's these pictures of them together.
Oh,
and
she aged like a president.
He's 32, and she looks 50.
He's 32 and dumb as a brick wall. Forever young.
She's like, I know too much. I'm burdened by the knowledge of my own impending doom. I am evergreen.
Need me to go somewhere? You're going to have to take me by the hand, child.
Now, as he's in Indianapolis, he's finding his feet, and he's preaching. This is a dangerous time to be a firebranding politician preaching abolition, because in these fights over abolition in these states, they're burning presses, they're shooting people in churches.
Jesus.
But even though the people fighting for abolition are treating their wives just as poorly as if they were slaves, the common law back then was husband and wife are one, and that one is the husband.
Yes.
And there were 3 things you couldn't insure: glass, eggs, and women.
Whoa.
I'd like to take out a policy.
I want to take out a policy on a baker's dozen.
But these eggs are my wife's.
They're full of malaria, mind you. You couldn't insure. Who was trying to insure eggs?
You know, they're
Well,
gonna
they were
eat.
insuring homeless people in the 40s.
Yeah. You're right. Yeah.
But so Beecher is preaching New Calvinism, though, which offered this glimpse of hope to women that their destination was not predetermined.
Right.
In a time when almost every other baby died, there was a glimmer of hope to women that your baby wasn't bound to die because you did something that displeased God.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so through his preaching and through his writing, he would become incredibly well known. He was abolitionist, pro-women's suffrage during the Civil War. However, all those things he did for the Civil War, he was more theatrical about them than actually believing them. He would write all of his anti-slave articles ghostwritten
By slaves?
By Drake?
Yeah, you write something. I know how to read. What does this say?
I wish I... What?
During after Reconstruction, when Johnson was president, Beecher would write, this is one of the things he did write, "The laws and intents of the government and ourselves will do no avail if they are unpleasant to the white people of the South," telling us that we should just rely on the whites to be kind. We should trust them.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Well,
that worked.
that
before.
always works.
Mm-hmm.
Yeesh.
And he liked to preach the gospel of love, as he called it.
Yeah.
And he said, Christ can save you because you're a sinner, not because you aren't one. You can't be saved unless you sin.
Right, hey, I'm trying to get my dead Messiah's worth, you know what I'm saying?
And
I'm sending up a storm over here. I'm not letting this guy die for nothing.
Yeah.
Well, but he also argued that orthodoxy and heterodoxy change over time, and what is heterodox one year might be orthodox the next year.
Mm-hmm.
And he loved this phrase: "Orthodoxy is my doxy, and heterodoxy is your doxy." And if your doxy is wait, orthodoxy is my doxy, heterodoxy is your doxy. If your doxy is not like my doxy,
Right.
It was so dumb, it was clever.
Right.
Clearly, it's a reader. But then he would take advantage of this. There's a woman who worked on a book of sermons with him who claimed she was raped. One of his congregants found his wife was sleeping with Beecher, When she died, she confessed it to him on her deathbed.
Damn.
And there was a rumor at the time that every Sunday evening he would preach to 7 or 8 mistresses.
Damn.
Another woman he cheated with was his best friend's wife, a man named Theodore Tilton and his wife Lib Tilton. And this became the biggest gossip of the day when it was printed in a famous New York paper, which we will get into later.
Mm-hmm.
And it was basically one of the trials of the century when they held a trial over this case in his church.
A trial over just...
Or whether whether it had really happened, or whether she had caused it to happen because of her wily instincts.
So adultery was a crime?
No, there was no jail time. It was the spirit was on trial.
In a courtroom?
In the church. His church held a case.
Yeah.
Well,
they put dead bodies and fucking muskrats on trial and bugs.
Is your soul in danger of being eternally damned for having sex with your best friend's wife?
All souls are equal in God's eyes.
You may be entitled to compensation. Slander and libel are against the law.
But it's also not like this Theodore Tilton guy was a good husband, right?
Oh, yeah, he was some son
he
of a
was
bitch.
cheating on his wife, and also he was so annoyed with her that he drove her further into religion and then closer to Beecher. And then, of course, he took advantage of that.
Right.
So there were these moments where women sleeping with Beecher, there was hope. And part of this hope was there's this aspect of religion, some religion back then called revivalism.
Mm-hmm.
And it was this spiritual freedom. And most mothers in all of these small towns in America, they didn't have that many friends. But, because they'd just be doing chores all day or being pregnant, right? And they just
Or
had
miscarrying.
all these kids to take care of. But in all of these small towns, this revival would sweep in.
Right.
And it would just for a weekend, everybody would go to church
The tent would come
and just
through, yeah.
let loose.
Right, big hysterias.
It was part of this second great awakening in America.
Right. So probably some looser legs on the
Yes.
scene.
Yes.
Right?
You submit to God for salvation, and some of this led to abolition and utopian society and women's rights movements. But because they were religious, they also got pretty fucking hot.
Yeah.
Right.
John Humphrey Noyes was a famous preacher back then, and he founded one of the great silverware companies in America.
What was his name?
John Humphrey Noyes.
Noise.
He said, Noyes. He said, religious love is very near neighbor to sexual love, and they always get mixed in the intricacies and social excitements of revivals. Hence these wild experiments and terrible disasters. He was a perfectionist preacher and utopian. He coined the term complex marriage, a.k.a. free love.
Really?
And he established the Oneida, what is now the Silverware Company.
Huh.
Because he started the Oneida community, which was this free love community in New York.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And here's an example of what happened in those revivals sometimes. This is Brimfield, Massachusetts. Noyes was there. He preached this great sermon, and the women went into, quote, a frenzy over which I could exercise no control. And he fled.
Jesus Christ.
He fled to Vermont. He couldn't even stay in Massachusetts.
Did he get
So
homesick?
he started he started a revival hysteria that put everybody into such a sexual panic that he was like, I can't even stay here and sell teaspoons to these women.
So here's what happened. So 2 of the women, apparently, they went home with another preacher.
Jesus.
And when one of their father found out, he banished her from his house. So she went to a friend's house where all these other local women were, and they started dancing and singing and kissing. And when that woman's father showed back up, she said, "You look like the devil," and she kicked him out. And then the next morning, her and her friend, after all of this excitement, they saw a prophecy that Brimfield was going to be destroyed by hellfire, and they fled the house in the middle of winter, and they ended up towns over, naked, frostbitten at some farmer's door, dying from hypothermia.
Oh my God.
We're naked and alone and manless. May we please come in? I'm all wet.
Did they die?
They did not. They survived, and the story, they kind of slinked back home.
Yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I wonder
They were-
how
I bet they were begging for hot soup. And thrown on them.
I'm sorry, sir. We don't mean to trouble you, but we just got done with a bout of lesbianism. Brand new to us.
Well, could you please douse us
you
with some
mind taking in 2 nude women into your home?
into your
Find the-
cottage?
Find the kindness in your heart, or
To
maybe
open-
somewhere else.
to open your hearth and home to our TNA.
You imagine 2 frozen naked women on your doorstep in the
Oh.
1800s?
Yes.
Oh, a revival come to town?
Mhm. Well, I guess there is good news. Come on in and tell me all about
Soup's on.
it. Close off.
Now, so a lot of intertwined also, again, with all of this revivalism and spiritualism and mesmerism.
Mm.
A lot of this started, and where it first really took hold is in Western New York in the 1840s.
Rochester, Buffalo, etc.?
Yeah,
If I'm not mistaken,
Rochester especially.
mesmerism is named after a man. Mesmer.
Yes, who his quote unquote studies he did in the late 1700s,
Mm-hmm.
and then that science got intertwined with this invisible energy and belief, because he talked about invisible energy and
Right.
that there's a negative hand and a positive hand,
Yeah.
and when you move them on the body, it
Right. It was true enough for the time.
laying on hands.
Yes,
Right.
yes, which is still very popular in the New Age movement. And with my dad.
So
I'll lay hands on you, boy.
is this where mesmerized is also coming from too?
I believe so, yeah.
Yes, mesmerism, mesmerize is all from this mesmer.
Mesmerized has connotations that are a little bit more.
Well, that's it came to mean that,
Right.
but it is
Right.
from mesmer.
And because part of this is intertwined with spiritualism, which is one of these movements that took part in Western New York.
So mesmerism isn't just straight magnet work.
It can be.
Okay.
That was his original idea, I believe.
Right,
and
but
then,
then his
it
hands
slowly
got involved.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, then it became borderline in hypnosis
Right.
and
There's a huge magnet right in my dick.
It's pointing right at
It'll pull the malaria right out your womb.
So we're talking Western New York in the 1840s. Now, this would later, much later, in 1870s, be known as the Burnt Out District.
Ooh.
And it would be called this. At the time, it was not called that. It was coined in 1876, and the phrase is basically that they got burnt. They got tricked.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
And they started calling it the burnt out district?
Yeah, this is way after all of these things had started dying out.
Because everybody put all their money in hand laying.
Yeah.
Shit.
Ain't
I mean,
that
should
some
have
shit?
invested in eggs.
But think about it. Okay, so what did the gold rush do in America, right, when it came out? Now, the Erie Canal opened in 1825. This connected the eastern seaboard with what was at the time the furthest west of the United
Midwest,
States.
Right.
So this was the new frontier.
Yeah.
And so all of these people, immigrants and hand layers, they all swept into these places where maybe there's a new opportunity.
Right.
Wow.
The frontier.
And so from the Burnout District, this is where Mormonism and Millerism emerged. From
Yeah.
Millerism emerged Jehovah's Witnesses, Adventists, Shakers came from this area.
Mm.
But the most exciting thing to come from this area was spiritualism.
Right.
And this basically started with 3 sisters.
Really?
March 31, 1848, the Fox sisters claimed that they had been contacted by a dead body of their neighbors, or in their house. There's a couple different stories. A nearby dead man, and they said the dead would contact them through knocking sounds, something, and they could talk to him, and they would say, "How old are you?" And there would be a knock for, and be like, "Oh, okay." So someone's like, "My kid died."
Old enough.
And so their local community started getting enthralled with them, and then a nearby Quaker couple took them in, and then their movement got intertwined with these Quaker beliefs of abolition and temperance and equal rights for women. So suddenly spiritualism was now intertwined with these other movements.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't know all these. I would figure all these like very Protestant religions would be all super conservative and not into abolition or women's rights.
Well, I mean, it's Protestantism by nature is
It's rebellious,
yeah.
but usually it rebels in kind of a way that gets more extreme. It gets more fire and brimstone a lot of times, but I guess not always.
right.
That was just always kind of my with a lot of like the Scotch-Irish settlers, or like the Northern Ireland Protestants, that it would always be like, you would say your church had sold out and become apostate. They were too soft now, and you needed to go further into fire and brimstone.
But what were each of these? So between the revivals and the spiritualism, these were women often, very often, women powered.
Yes.
Yes.
And all of these women who were living all these lives where they had no control over everything. And it ties into, after the Civil War, what happened is the same, very similar thing happened after World War II. During the Civil War, women ran everything.
Yep.
And then the men came back and they said, get back in that house. You don't know how to do any of this.
Yeah. You've only been doing it for 4 or 5 years. Get the fuck out.
And so all of these people who had believed in very concrete things before the Civil War, suddenly everything was kind of slipping away before, during, and after it. And all of these institutions that were bedrocks of things that were of morality, like churches and police and politicians, were suddenly being corrupted by money and power, and women were being kicked back to the kitchen. And part of this then goes into the free love movement, where they said, "Well, I can do whatever I want." And then men's response to the free love movement was, "Women are getting hysterical. We need to circumcise them."
Right.
Oh.
So in 1868, gynecological surgeons started performing clitorectomies to quell desire.
Damn.
That is so crazy that went on here. And
Not that long ago.
And,
and it still happens in Africa.
No, yeah, I know, but I mean,
And that's the most, kind of like, you say clitorectomy, you think Africa, but it was going on here not 100 years ago.
And that was one of the other things. One of the things they did. The other thing was a rest cure, basically where doctors would take women who were too out there, and they would lock up in a room until their spirit broke, and then send them back.
Oh, good.
Damn.
Well, yeah, the doctors also would they'd finger blast women until if they were
No, that's not the medical term, but
finger fuck.
Well, yeah, I think they were doing the early vibrators.
And the G-spot stuff.
So I mean, you got one way, which is to finger blast them and get them off.
Yeah.
And the other way, which is to make sure they hopefully never get off again.
right.
Who are these?
Well, I mean, the clitorectomy is what I was thinking when you were saying here's these women-led movements in the spiritual or political realm or whatever. I was just like, this is not that long after Salem. Like,
Nope.
We're gonna, you have female-led shit, and immediately men are gonna start leaning back to that witch-type thinking, and you can't burn at the stake anymore. So what do you do?
Right.
Mutilate their genitals.
Right. And I think this probably also lines up time period wise with Freud and his, the theory of the libido as the driving force in human psychology.
Yeah.
And what a powerful energy that is, right? If you dive down deep enough in all of us, the desire to reproduce, the desire to have sex is what drives us forward. And if you can quell that, you neuter a dog, and all of a sudden it's a different dog. And I think,
I mean, if you keep your wife pregnant, well, where's she gonna go?
she's not gonna.
Yeah.
Exactly. So cut off her clit, keep her pregnant, choose it.
So,
Jesus Christ!
all of this is swirling around, and I just covered a period of like 1830 to 1880 almost.
Right.
Where all of these things are sweeping in and out.
Yeah.
Because that's the period of our profile of someone who will be born shortly, but she will be born to her mother and her father. Her mother was Anna Roxy or Roxana Hummel Chafflin. She was born in 1804 in Mifflinburg, Pennsylvania, a.k.a. Youngman's Town, maybe 3 miles from New Berlin. She was short, squat. She had a thick German accent. Her father may have run a tavern in what is now Union County. Her nickname came from the boat her German grandparents rode to America. They settled in Pennsylvania, maybe. What is known is at the age of 13, she was the maid of the governor's son. The son was a scumbag. His friend was having a wedding, and after they had their vows, he took the bride and took her off for 3 days and got her pregnant.
Oh my God!
And when she came back,
prima nocta on her.
When she came back, the husband said, "No, I don't want her anymore."
Oh, Jesus Christ!
So this was the kind of guy that she was living with. He was the son of the governor.
Right.
In 1824, she's 20. And she's working in this tavern area. And this man named Reuben Buckman Buck Cheflin.
Reuben Buckman Buck Cheflin?
Yeah.
Yes. Mustachioed man, I'm sure.
The Cheflin was his name, not hers. And he rides into town with a pile of black horses.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, okay.
Pile.
Well, just like a whole bunch of horses.
Right. Yeah.
It's like
a heap.
a heap of horses. Thank
Yeah.
you. And a couple of minutes later, he's washing the horses. Turns out they're white horses. He stole a bunch of horses and disguised them.
Brilliant.
He put the horses in blackface?
That's how he got the second Buck in his name. He's being such a wily character.
He was a card counter. He was a horse. He would cheat on horses. He would counterfeit money. One time the cops said, "Hey man, I think you're counterfeiting money." So he ate it, and they didn't have any evidence.
What are you talking about? What money?
So the governor's son immediately.
Legal and tender.
The governor's son immediately took a liking to this guy.
Oh God.
So they would just go around riding and fucking all day. And of course, one of them got Roxy pregnant. They don't know who, but they assume it was Buck. Because what would happen is sunup, men would work, and at night, and then go to carnivals, and at night they would go to taverns. And women, who they called, quote, chore horses, women had nothing to do but just hang out. And so Buck taught Roxy about fortune telling, and so for a penny, these women would come to her, and she'd be like, she would read their palms and say, "Oh, your dead son's okay."
Right.
I mean, not here, but you know.
Yeah. If you like dead kids,
My
it's
son's
great.
dead. I just saw him. It's all right.
Well, the odds. Over the next 12 years, from 1825 to 1837, she would have 6 kids. Delia and Odessa would die in infancy. Margaret Ann, Polly, and Malden all lived, though. And then Buck, needing some money, needed another opportunity. He took the whole family, moved them to Homer, Ohio.
Paint them all in blackface first.
While he was there, he started some news scams, selling medicine and herbal remedies, and Roxy would read palms and escape at revivals.
So this is we're picturing like prototypical snake oil salesman with a carriage, and the lady with the tent telling you her fortune.
Pile of kids.
Yeah. Where this is. The imagery here is 100%
And now to
perfect
Ohio.
Americana.
Yeah, now he's in Ohio, small town Ohio.
Right.
So, 1838, during a heat, one of these hot revivals.
Oh boy.
Hot revival?
Roxy's having a great time.
She having a fit?
Buck lays her down behind a bench and fucks. And this...
Behind a bench.
Yeah.
How romantic.
I know. He's
Behind the bench.
behind the bench. And this is, according to the family story, how was the consummation of Victoria Woodhull. Or
Yes.
Victoria Cheflin, as she was known then.
Uh-huh.
She was born September 23, 1838. And she will be the main focus of the rest of this.
Okay.
Like her siblings, she was beaten daily by her parents.
Of course.
By both parents. Would beat her daily. Her mom would heal her with mesmerism.
Jesus.
Their older son, Malden, he just couldn't take it anymore, so he ran away, and no one ever heard of him ever again. He died in like 1860-something in Chicago. But they had no idea. None of them ever heard of him ever again. Even though eventually, at one point, they would live in Chicago.
Weird.
After Victoria, 1841, 1842, Utica Veneticia was born, and then an unnamed boy who died.
Fuck them.
All day long, the kids would do housework. They would dig in the garden. They'd help their mom make Buck's life elixir, as he called it then.
Did it contain urine?
Well, for a $1 bottle, you could drink some laudanum and alcohol mixed with molasses and herbs. And the kids would help make this, and Utica, as a young child, very quickly became addicted to corn whiskey and opium. While swilling and mixing all of these various concoctions.
At what age?
At a very young age.
Very young.
5, 6, 7.
I think I like the life elixir.
She would be
Daddy?
a notorious drunk for the rest of her short life.
Very good.
But she was also the hottest kid of the family.
Really?
Yeah.
Was it the look in her eye?
It might have been. She was always noted for her looks, and that she was a little dull.
Yeah,
you think it might have started early with the opium and corn whiskey.
Yeah.
So
well, I mean, dull women, though, were in high demand back then.
Well, yes.
Never gonna see me reading no book.
Fuck me.
Give me your life elixir.
These eggs don't need insurance, sweetheart. Victoria Woodhull's sister, Utica.
Utica. All right, she's a big favorite already.
Yes, she plays a very important role at various stages.
Because I'm familiar with the Woodhull sisters as an entity through one of our favorite shared authors, Bill Bryson.
Oh yes.
And he talked about both of them, and I do.
And Utica was probably not one of the ones he talked about.
Probably not the one he talked about.
But General Grant's father once wrote a poem about all three of them, saying they're all babes.
They're all babes?
Yeah.
Huh.
Fuck,
Yeah.
yeah, especially the one that's all doped up.
And he said they may be as famous as his son one day,
His
Huh.
son.
U.S. Grant.
Ah.
But we're not there yet. So the kids, despite all this, the kids really had almost no food to eat because Buck was a scam artist. So sometimes he'd come home just beaten up and bloody, no money,
Yeah.
right?
No money. Hurry up, Dad. I need some life elixir. I got my ass whooped. Got my ass handed to me while trying to sell life elixir.
Utica butt chugged it all.
She boofed the life elixir, Dad.
So they were constantly begging at their neighbors' houses, but their neighbors, even this small town, they were the bad family. And
Fucking A, they
the
were.
neighbor kids would get beat by their parents if they hung out with the Chafflins.
So, the fact that we only very recently stopped hitting children,
Yes.
I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but it is interesting that
Oh, God.
Go on.
I mean they're just so easy. The most vulnerable
Yes.
anything,
Yes, the child.
and then
Yes.
to beat it.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. And still there's the Chafflin children beaten, and then the neighbor children innocent.
Yes,
Equally beaten.
Yes.
yeah,
For hanging out
just
with
for
the...
being adjacent.
Yeah. So no matter what, you're fucked.
Yeah.
So I think it's probably a good thing that it went away.
I don't think it's gone away.
It's gone out of style.
Oh, it's out of style. For
yes.
sure, but
so still some kids probably getting knocked around. Maybe.
some maybe should.
So one day, Victoria, instead of she didn't usually beg for food, and one day she went over to the neighbor house. Instead of begging for food, she asked if there was any chores she could do.
And
crafty.
The neighbors had the sister. They had an aunt there, the sister of the father who owned the house. She was 21, and she took pity on the girl, and she taught her how to read and write. And so for the next year, she taught Victoria how to read and write, and she learned more than she'd ever learned in her life.
Right.
And then a year into it, the aunt caught cholera and died in 12 hours.
Jesus.
Holy shit.
And so Victoria went over there and she heard the news, and she went to the orchard behind her house, and she said she was just trying to feel something. She didn't know what to do. And it was there that she fell on the ground, and she, for the first time in her life, she saw spirits. And she saw the dead aunt carrying her to the spirit world. And she said it was a counterpoint to this world, where it was very similar, but just with spirits. And it was there that she met Desmosthenes. I think I'm pronouncing that right. He was the father of Athenian thought.
Okay.
Demosthenes. There it is. And there she also met Bonaparte and Josephine.
Huh.
And they told her that they were going to be her spirit guides for the rest of her life.
Napoleon
Mm-hmm.
and the wife he ate out.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
All right. Story checks out.
Okay. All right. I'm in.
Most believable part of the story so far.
Are you cliffhanging it there?
Nope. Also from this is when she was learning to read and write, she also recognized that she could memorize things very easily. After only a glimpse or two, she could memorize an entire page.
Very good.
This has become very important because in 1846, two things that were very important happened. One, her sister Tennessee Celeste was born.
Aha.
Now Tennessee Celeste.
No.
Ooh, now.
Oh.
My.
Now, we didn't quite have Blanche Devereaux yet. Tennessee Celeste.
You're quite a precursor. You couldn't cut off this clitoris if you tried, Tiger.
You would have had a tiger by the tail, buddy.
Ooh, we are all just floating through the universe, and my sister and Napoleon as guides.
You can try cutting off my clitoris, but it's a 10-inch cock.
You're gonna need a bigger blade, buddy.
You're gonna need some of them steel threshers like the farmers boys
Good
have.
thing the Industrial Revolution happened, because you're gonna need a whole heap of blades to cut through this tree trunk. My libido strong.
No, she didn't really have a 10-inch clit, right?
No, that was never. I don't remember
That's a
seeing
part,
that.
you know.
But anyway,
hearsay.
part two. Save it for part two.
Hypotheticals.
And, you know, if she did, great. If she didn't,
Good for her.
equally great.
Yeah.
So
as
that's-
long as she kept it.
Please God.
Tennessee Celeste would be someone who would be important for the rest of her life. But also, so in 1846, she's 8, and now her mom had visions before, and had visions about seeing her kids, rising out of poverty and becoming great. And
Visit Victoria's mother.
Victoria's mother, Roxy.
Right.
Yes.
But when Victoria told her parents this, Buck said, "Fantastic," because child preachers were all the rage back then.
Right.
Oh,
And
yeah.
So he took her on tour. She would stand on a stack of crates, and she would say, "I am the word, sinners, repent. Listen to me, for I know things you do not know. I can cure, I can smite."
Wow.
And people would just go crazy.
Right.
Damn.
So 1847, in Homer, Ohio, Buck insures his grist mill. He had a grist mill, by the way.
A grist mill?
Mhm.
What is grist?
I believe that's when you turn the oat into finer things.
Yeah.
Ah.
And so he insured it against fire for $4,000.
Oh, no.
Now what happened next?
Well, it burned down.
It froze.
If only you could have some sort of vision.
Now, the real tragedy was the grist mill was full of uninsured eggs.
Oh, and women and glass.
Uninsured glass egg women.
What?
So now he collects his money, and then he's like, "Oh, the town is getting suspicious," so he takes off. He leaves the family there. Also, he was the postmaster.
Oh,
They
God.
go into the post office. They find piles of mail that he opened and took money out of.
Oh my God.
So shitty, but so funny. Don't trust him.
The life elixir guy? He's also the mailman.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the one with the
He can't. I
the
don't
one with
know.
the daughter that's gonna smite us.
I don't know why we have a mailman. There's no mail, apparently.
He's not a very good mailman or oat miller, but that life elixir, ooh man, I'll suck your
right.
cock for some of that.
It's fucking- the opened letters being found. My dearest Mary, here's $2 I worked all year for. God.
Hopefully no one takes this.
God, what a fucking nightmare. All right, so he's out.
Uh-huh.
The whole town has been bamboozled,
Uh-huh.
but his fucking wife and children remain.
Yeah. So the
What
town
a catastrophe.
the town does the nicest thing they could do is the local Christian women organize a bazaar and give all the money to the family on the condition that they leave town.
That's actually quite progressive. That's quite nice.
It's pretty good.
We're gonna have a bake sale, but then
Yeah.
you gotta leave.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
But
After
Tennessee
they-
Celeste.
after they already lost a lot of their money. The
yeah.
town lost so much money to this
Yeah.
family already, so it is quite.
It's hedging your
benevolent,
bets.
yeah,
It's cutting your losses, paying a tenant to leave.
Also, maybe the dad fled, so maybe we're not. It's him,
Well, it's
not
kind
the
of an
family.
insurance policy that he doesn't come back too,
True,
right?
right.
Get them the
Ah,
fuck out of here.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
way to
So
put it.
they did what any enterprising family would do. Turns out Margaret Ann, the old sister there, she got married in Ohio. So the whole family moved right into her house. And as soon as this happened, well, also there's
Wait, where in Ohio?
I forgot to write down what
But it's in another town.
in another town in
right,
Ohio.
right.
But the whole family was on this this kind of free love thing. They didn't really give a shit about any of that. And so almost immediately upon the family moving in, they get kicked out because her husband finds her in bed in a hotel room with another man.
Oh boy.
And then her younger sister, Polly, the second oldest sister
Polly
there,
and bye.
after she got married, she sent out letters to all of her admirers in town telling them that she was still available. And then her husband divorced her when he found this out. And she said, he divorced me because our baby was sick. And then the baby died. So she took the baby and she followed him around for 2 days holding a dead baby.
See?
This is why he left me.
Yeah, not because I fuck whoever I wanna.
Which I do.
Which I do, and I'm available as soon as I put this
I
baby
may not
down.
be as hot as my sister Tennessee Celeste, but I fuck whoever I want, and don't pay attention to the baby.
Yeah. Here, hold this a minute.
Hold this motherfucker. Okay? I gotta fuck this guy and prove a point.
So now, 1848. Victoria is 10. Tennessee Celeste, I think, is 6. And Tennessee Celeste has been sent to Pennsylvania because they couldn't care for her. They sent her to live with relatives in Pennsylvania.
Well, she was too hot. They couldn't resist her.
I mean, she was Victoria was more attractive than she, and Utica was the hottest. But Tennessee Celeste also was quite a looker.
But she had the je ne sais quoi. You know,
Yeah,
You're
just
not
her
supposed to
her
know
name
at
was
that
so
age.
hot.
It is a good name.
it is the hottest. If they're
Ironically, Utica, the least attractive name, but the hottest.
yeah.
You know?
But taste change. Heterodoxy might be your orthodoxy, and your Tennessee may be my Utica.
Yeah.
And
Right.
maybe now.
Now, was Utica fully cross-eyed by this stage on Life Elixir? Or?
I think the eyes just switched.
Laudanum. Barely know.
But yeah, I fucked him.
Laudanum, no, I fucked her.
So it's 1848, and Tennessee Celeste, she's in Pennsylvania, and while she's there, she's caught reading minds and predicting fires.
Oh, caught.
Yeah.
Caught.
Reading minds and predicting fires.
She's out here predicting fires.
Oh, boy.
And-
That's trouble,
Well,
huh?
Predicting fires is so
Pretty good.
stupid.
There's going to be a fire over there.
You think?
Oh. Well, I'll see you later.
No, which child was doing this?
This is Tennessee Celeste.
Tennessee Celeste, our beloved.
So what does Buck do when he hears this? He says, I got 2 of them.
Yeah. I got.
So wait, so Buck's back in the picture now?
Well, he heard about it.
Where did Buck come back?
Wait. The whole family was in Ohio. Tennessee
Got
Celeste,
it.
she was in Pennsylvania because they couldn't take care of her anymore, so they brought her.
I
but then when they
see,
heard
I
this,
see,
they
I
brought
see,
her
I see.
back. You know.
Well,
Okay.
She proved herself out on the road.
So is she predicting fires that happen?
Well, she did. But Buck said, "Well, now I got 2 brilliant kids," and so he took her and Victoria, and he would bring them on a tour in a wagon that he painted with the words "wonderful child," and he would have them give speeches and predict things, and that old gag. And he would starve them to make them perform better. And then,
Oh, God.
of course, and he would beat them, of course.
Of course. Well, this is how you make exceptional children, asked Joe Jackson.
Right. So, and during all of this, he would sell his life elixir, and here's this family that will see spirits and predict things for your family, and also here's some medicine, and this is how he's making his money.
Yeah. And I'm sure he's probably also given a little bit to the children who are hungry. Those, if you
Of the elixir.
or of the elixir too. Hey.
Maybe, but I think the kids knew what was in the elixir. They had to make it.
Right.
This is true.
Victoria, what she said when she was a kid, while she was making the elixir, she saw the devil for the first time.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Wow.
Cool.
Yikes.
The door opened in their house, and the devil was standing there. She was like, "That's not good."
Holy shit.
Yeah.
and Utica let him upstairs.
Oh, yeah, that's for me.
My friend's over.
If you hear any strange noises, don't open the door. Unless you hear my safe word.
So this keeps going on for another 4 or 5 years. And now Victoria's 14. And when she's 14, she gets sick with fever and rheumatism. And it is very convenient. Every now and then these things would conveniently happen in her life where she would have to stop doing this, and she had to stop performing. And she'd spend her whole time, and when she was in bed, she said she would spend the whole time talking to her 2 dead sisters and hanging out with them.
Whoa.
And so her parents want to heal her, so they find this local doctor named Canning Woodhull.
Canning.
Uh-huh.
Very nice.
And he is hired to heal her, and he prescribes her fresh air and healthy food. And
Huh? What did he do about her clitoris?
well, he starts taking her on walks, and when she's healthy, he asks her out on the 4th of July, or to the 4th of July fair. He's 28, she's 14. And when he takes her home that night, he says, my little puss,
Puss.
my little puss, he says. Puss might have been better. My little puss, tell your father and mother I want you for a wife. Mom, Roxy, recognizing, well, maybe this will stop her from being beaten by this guy, get her out of this house, and she says yes. Dad says no. So Vicky and Canning, they run off. And Victoria writes much later, she says, my marriage was an escape. Now, Canning was a drunk and a philanderer.
A philanderer.
He would sleep overnight in the local brothels whenever he could find one. But, to her, still, he wouldn't beat her. He let her think and breathe and live, and
Fresh air, healthy food.
She often, she said, she felt love for him.
Huh.
It was better than her father, and she felt love.
Yeah.
So 1854, she's 18. They move to Chicago. She gets pregnant in Chicago, and her half-drunk doctor husband delivers a baby and then disappears for a few days.
With the baby?
No. He leaves the baby.
He delivered it.
Delivers the baby.
There you go.
He's half drunk, all right?
Right.
Half drunk. Delivers the baby, gets out of
Well,
there.
you want a smooth, steady hand.
And right after this happens, she has a fever, and she's sick and she's dying.
Oh, God.
And Mama Roxy shows up,
Uh-huh.
claiming the spirits told her that she was needed.
Aww.
A week later, Canning returns, and he and Roxy bring her back to health. And her first son, her only son, Byron, was born, named after the poet.
Oh.
And he was an imbecile.
Perfect.
No teeth, never spoke, only used grunts.
No teeth.
No teeth.
He
Never spoke.
Okay.
She says sometimes.
Is this what makes an imbecile?
Well, it doesn't help.
No teeth.
Well, if he had-
Get this.
Probably a genius. He just needed some
He
teeth.
just needs, like Shane McGowan did fine.
No teeth.
No teeth is quite an add-on.
What a congenital defect. I've never heard of the no teeth ever.
This is my-
Period. Like ever.
I haven't heard of a baby with no teeth.
This is my son, no teeth.
Well, babies
Byron. This is my son, Byron. No teeth.
I know, but I mean, God knows he's probably full of malaria and life elixir and eggs.
Yeah.
You know what I
probably
mean?
not
Like,
a lot
who
of
knows what made him come out whatever way he did, you
Mhm.
know? People are probably just fucking, like, eating asbestos morning, noon, and night.
Those teeth were just up there. Like, we're not coming out.
He's too stupid. Like, I mean, yeah, I've never heard of anything like that before. So he
Me
speaks in grunts,
good. Right.
and
So in her histories, she would sometimes say that he fell out of a second-story window. Sometimes she just blamed herself for it. But for the rest of her life, because of this, she was a strong believer in eugenics.
Right. This I did
What?
about
Yeah.
her.
who had the bad genes?
I mean, probably a drunk father, but
Yeah.
also it's not like her family was perfect.
But he's a
family.
doctor.
Well,
So
he's
what?
also a drunk.
I know, but I mean, they're all drunk. Everybody's drunk.
Yeah.
Fucking Eugene's been on fucking heroin and booze since she was 8 or whatever.
Right, but she's also probably thinking about all the times that she got sick as a kid, right? She had rheumatism, fevers, and she, et cetera, et cetera. And, eugenics was a very, very popular thing during this time in the United States.
Yeah, I guess.
That's
but
where
I
the
mean,
Nazis got it from us.
Yeah.
Not us.
Not
The
guys like
Americans.
you and me, but yeah, I mean, It's just, yeah, I don't know. I'm just kind of like, what? She was, smart and able to read and do all that shit, like memorize a whole page and all that stuff upon sight.
Well, she didn't always blame herself. Sometimes she did. Sometimes she did.
Man, fuck.
But so she's 18, and then they're running out of money, so they do what everybody did back then. Gold was discovered 5 years earlier. They head west. They go to California. But there, it's the opposite of all of these places in the Midwest and the East. There's almost no women. There's 20 men for every woman, and no one gives a shit about visions or spirit healing or anything like that. She said they were beggars in the land of plenty, and she took a job as a cigar girl, and she just couldn't handle the abuse.
Oof. Yeah.
And so she just took up sewing, and one day an actress hired her to sew some things, and recognized how well she could remember things, told her to try acting, and suddenly she went from making $3 a day to $52.
Oh my God!
The equivalent of going from $90 to $1,500. And so during this time, there would be these shows with all of these actors, and they perform at night, and then after that performance, they'd all go get wasted, and everybody would it'd become a orgy of sorts.
Whoa!
And during these orgies, the actresses could make even more money.
Holy shit!
Things have not changed.
What are you talking
Dude.
about? What?
Dude.
After plays, the actresses are fucking everybody? What are you saying?
We'll do it on a Patreon.
No. All right. So, what's going on? What are you saying? What crazy
Something's
shit?
going on.
Yeah. You think it's fucking like after they rap on a league of their own, that there's just a big fucking orgy.
Oh, fucking wish.
Thelma and Louise, forget about it.
League of their own. Hey, Madonna.
Rosie O'Donnell.
Laurie Petty. Oh,
Tank Girl.
oof, Maroon. Oops, my bosom's come out.
Oh, shit.
Mm-mm.
That's good shit. All right, well, describe to the Patreon here what the fuck Aaron's talking about. You psycho.
It's during one of these orgy parties, she meets another actress named Josie Mansfield. They became friends. It's become very important much later. But Josie had one of these women who just had this incredibly awful lives. Her father was incredibly abusive, and then he died, and her mother they ran off to like San Francisco or something. She met a gambler and fell in love, and then that guy was abusive, and he started raping Josie, and so she ran away to.
No shortage of good men in this whole thing, huh?
Mm-hmm. So meanwhile, Victoria's making a pretty decent money acting and fucking, and it was a living. But
You just imagine her pausing mid-fuck, looking at a non-existent camera. Hey, it's a living!
He's got a big magnet in this one.
Ooh, boy.
But so Dr. Husband Canning, he's also now along with alcohol, he's now addicted to drugs.
What
And,
kind?
I'm assuming opium. Any?
Yeah.
And so she's getting tired of having to take care of him and the kid. And so in the middle of a play, very conveniently for her, she has a vision of Tennessee and Roxy calling her back home. So she runs off the stage in the middle of the play. They pack up everything they have, and they leave back to Ohio. And when she gets back to Ohio, Roxy was wearing the same outfit from the vision that she had. And
To be fair, she had like 3 outfits.
Yeah.
But when she arrived, Roxy said, I told Tennessee to call you home.
Oh.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I told Tennessee to call you home.
Mm-hmm.
Funny.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know what a connection.
So now,
There's going to be a lot of fires coming up. Glad you're home. We're putting out the fire with gasoline.
So now we're getting to 1860, and at this point, the family's raking in the money.
From what?
Well, Tennessee's working 13 hours a day. Buck is taking that money. Victoria's doing her spiritual healing.
Mm-hmm.
Here's an ad that Buck... So they would go town to town, and Buck would put an ad out in the paper This is one of them.
I'm looking for a hardcore. I'm looking for a full-time serviceman. Sorry, please continue.
This is the headline. A wonderful child. Miss Tennessee Cheflin, who's only 14 years of age. That was exclamation
Then
points.
that's it. For sale.
This young lady has been endowed from her birth with a supernatural gift to such an astonishing degree that she convinces the most skeptical of her wonderful powers. She gives information of absent friends, whether living or dead, together with all the past, present, future events of life. She can see and point out medicine or cure the most obstinate diseases, even those that for years baffled the best physicians. She can direct salves and liniments to be made that will use to cure all old sores, fever sores, cancers, sprains, weakness in the back and limbs, and other complaints. She'll point out to ladies and gentlemen for their former, present, and future partners, and when required, she will go into an unconscious state and travel to any part of the world, hunt up absent friends, whether dead or alive, and through her they will tell the inquiring friend their situation and whereabouts with all the events of life since they last met.
I'm in hell. It sucks so bad. Do you have any laudanum?
She may be consulted at her room, address inserted, from the hours of 8 a.m. to 9 o'clock p.m. Price of consultation $1.
Damn, $1.
And
$1.
during this, if they needed medicine, Buck would sell his. Now it was called Miss Tennessee's Magnetic Life Elixir.
Yes, brand it. Good branding there, Miss Tennessee.
Now Victoria...
Don't ask us where it comes from.
Victoria believed she could see spirits, but Tennessee didn't.
She knew she was faking.
Yes.
Okay.
Victoria...
So when her mom said, I asked Tennessee to tell you to come home, and
Tennessee's like, ugh.
Tennessee's like, I mean, I don't fucking know anything.
Right,
We're
whether this was something that was ever processed or admitted or known by Victoria, I don't.
Right, and yeah, who believed and who didn't.
But for Tennessee, Buck would pull all the great scams for her. When he went to town, he would copy all the info from local cemeteries, and all of these, there are these things called blue books, where spiritual groups it'd be like, here are the people in town who go to these things. These are their names. These are their relatives. Here's things you should know about them.
Holy shit! Wow.
And they would do things called muscle reading. So they would say things, and then whoever reacted, you say a bunch of things, and then the one that actually means something to someone, they react a little bit, and you go, then you know.
Right.
Wow.
And they'd do these things called one-ahead message reading. And so one-ahead message reading is you start off, is you say, everybody writes something down on a piece of paper. I'm going to pull it out, and I'll hold it to my forehead, and I'll tell you what it says. And the key to this is always be one message ahead. So the first message you already know. Yep. So you say that out loud, and then, okay. But because you're one message ahead, you take out the next message, and that's the one you pretend to read like it was the last one. Right. Mm-hmm. So when you hold up the next piece of paper, and you guess what it is, you're actually guessing the one you just read. But they don't know that.
Okay.
So it's this one trick where it sounds like you predicting things or guessing correctly, but you're actually just saying the last thing you read.
Right.
But they don't know that.
Yes, okay.
And so these were some of the tricks. But Victoria herself, she had a magnetic personality. She would greet people with two hands. She would stare down non-believers until they broke.
Oh, my God.
Once an old woman was stuck in her gaze and her false teeth popped out.
Just like her kid. You don't believe me? Look at my imbecile son.
Wait, the imbecile son was thrown out a window or something, right?
Well, sometimes you say, well, he fell out a window.
Fell out a window.
Maybe I did a lot of math. I don't know.
But she would also do a lot of magnetic healing. The right hand is positive, left hand is negative, laying on hands. She was once claimed by someone else to have returned this person's son to life after 2 hours after he had died. Oh, I'm sorry. No, she proclaimed this about herself. This is a story she told where she brought her own son back from death 2 hours after he had died.
The no-teeth kid.
Yes. She found him dead, and she said, "No, I will not permit his death." And she said, as she held him to her body, I beheld Jesus standing in the doorway. His arms were outstretched, showing me his hands and feet. I saw the scars of his crucifixion. My whole future was foreshadowed in that time. And after this happened, she was inspired to run off and start her own business. She was 22. She runs off to St. Louis. Indianapolis, I'm sorry. She runs off to Indianapolis. She rents a room in the now historic Bates Hendricks house. Then it was just a regular house.
Oh.
You know. Take the Profiles Pervert tour.
Oh, we got to publish our own
Yeah.
green book? Shout out to the Oscars.
So while she's there, she puts an ad in the newspaper for a clairvoyant medium and magnetic healer. And she wasn't making enough money off that, so she hired a couple of girls and set up a fuck business.
Hey!
Holy shit!
Yeah. And so from this, they made some good money, but then the house found out and kicked her out. But now she's 7 months pregnant. April 1861, she gives birth. This time, instead of half drunk, her husband is full drunk. Canning.
Delivering.
He delivers the baby. He half severs the umbilical cord, doesn't tie it off, and leaves the baby on a pillow next to her. And then he leaves.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Chew off the rest of it, you dumb bitch.
I did the lion's share of the work. Figure it out.
Do something yourself, for God's sake.
I'm going to your brothel.
I'm gonna go fuck one of your employees. Maybe this one's got some teeth.
I have to do everything around here.
Jesus Christ.
Okay, so how does that go?
So she falls asleep. She wakes up.
She falls asleep?
Yeah, because she was just worn out from all this.
right,
she
right.
falls asleep, I don't know, who knows how much longer later.
She's lost a lot of blood.
And she wakes up and her pillow's covered with blood. So she sees what's happening. She bites through the cord, ties it off,
Yep.
but she can't get up. So she rips the rung off of a chair and bangs it against the wall. A neighbor lady hears it, breaks in through the basement, and rescues her. 3 days later...
So let's, really quick,
Okay.
she wakes up.
Yeah, she cannot get up.
She wakes up, chews through the umbilical cord.
Right. And she cannot get up, but she can rip the rung off a chair
Yes.
and
With her
wrap
bare
it
hands.
and wrap it against the wall.
Rapping against the neighbor's wall.
Neighbor lady hears it. She can't get through the front door, so she breaks in through the basement grate.
Huh. Okay.
Sounds like these women don't need education. Sounds like they got it all figured out.
Neighbor comes over and is like, I heard there's a 48-year-old spirit in here. Okay, so what happens? Does the baby survive?
Baby survives. She names the kid Zulu Maud.
Zulu Maud.
And now, I don't
And
want
Zulu Maud
Is
is,
it-
brilliant.
full,
Really?
born with whole teeth and
All the teeth and all the brain.
Too many teeth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the second row, like sharks.
Yes.
Uh,
Zulu Maud.
Zulu is a boy or a girl?
But Zulu is a girl.
Zulu Maud.
Zulu Maud. It's like something fucking Zappa would name his kid.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. So they're recovering, and 3 days later, she sees her husband stumbling down the street, and he goes across the street and breaks into the house next door, thinking it was his house.
Wow.
Oh, I know a guy like that.
Yeah.
Hey, Al! The fuck you doing?
That's a Patreon.
Yeah, no, that's a
a
great story.
Patreon.
She decides in this moment, I probably should leave this guy.
Good for her. She's got a brilliant Zulu Maud baby daughter,
Yeah.
and then she got the kind of imbecile son.
Well, he's gone. He went out a window.
No, he's
no,
still there.
He's still around.
Oh, so he.
No, that's one of the reasons,
That was one of
maybe
the
why
excuses
he
she
might be
gave to
imbecile.
him being
really?
a Mongol.
Yeah.
Oh, so he's still around.
Yes. Yes, he's still around.
What is he gonna do?
Okay, all right. So Byron is in the house. Zulu is in the house.
Uh-huh. So now she takes him back to family. She takes him back to the family, as you do. Now they're renting out an entire boarding house in Ottawa, Illinois. And it's 1861, and the spiritualism it will reach its peak in 1863 with about 7 million believers in the United States.
That's interesting. I thought I was always under the impression, this is just my own ignorance, but I always thought it was really big, like in the teens and 20s. But that maybe have just been like as it got to the West Coast.
Yeah, maybe. Well, like the 19...
Yeah, 19 teens.
Interesting.
19.
I think
teens.
maybe it was big here, but maybe
Right.
not 7 million people.
They also
Exactly,
there was just
right.
also like a lot of like kind of loose money going around and people investing in crazy shit back then
Sure,
too.
sure.
And there's also more documentation in history of that time.
Right.
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 So now Tennessee she's healing people. She's having visions. Victoria is healing as well. And Victoria, Tenny, and Utica are all beautiful, and they're all being prostituted out.
Oh,
No, they're being prostituted out by Buck, dirty old Buck.
Yes, and whether for them this was normal or they were forced, it's hard to say. I mean,
Seems like it was just kind of a common career.
it was kind of
Yeah.
just it was a thing to do to
Yeah.
make money.
Right.
And you know, I'll get into it in the next half, where she advocates for. She makes a very strong argument for prostitution.
Legality.
Not only legality, but the hypocrisy of men being against it.
Fucking A, right?
Yeah.
But so they would prostitute themselves out, and then sometimes Buck would pull a little trick where he would walk up to the man they just slept with, and he would cry, and say, "That was my virgin daughter. I can't believe you did that," and he would trick the man into giving him more money.
They get you coming and they get you going.
Yeah.
Ha ha! She's a whore.
Psych, motherfucker!
Now,
Snatched up yo!
Got you 15 cents.
I mean, a man without a nut is vulnerable.
The post nut blues.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's the thing that happened in Ottawa. So,
Man's daughter.
I believe Ottawa was the city that the Lincoln Douglas debates were held in.
Really?
Yes. And one day, this was years later, but Lincoln was riding through in his carriage, and Victoria writes this. She says, "When Lincoln was on his way to Washington to be inaugurated president, my sister Tenny was with father and mother at a prominent hotel in Pittsburgh. Thousands of the inhabitants had assembled in the street. As the carriage came into sister's sight, she exclaimed, 'He will never leave the White House alive. I heard a pistol shot and saw the blood running from his head and his coffin in the carriage with him.'"
Wow.
That was more Colin than I meant it to be. But I really...
No, and now,
she said, "Quote."
and who said this? Which
Tennessee said this. According to
So
Victoria.
Tennessee-
Tennessee, the one that doesn't even
Tennessee-
believe in it.
Right.
According-
So
I
maybe-
mean, I didn't find like things saying that Tennessee was like, I don't believe in it. But by all accounts, she was not enthusiastic about it like Victoria was.
So maybe she was the most legit.
Hmm?
Yeah.
Because she wasn't like,
The reluctant psychic.
yes, I'm
Yes.
plagued with these visions and these large breasts. Oh.
Well, I mean, I guess, there's a thing, like, there could be some shit there, right, where you actually have things happen. But then day to day, you're rifling through cemetery bullshit to do people out of their money, and that's fake.
Right.
But there could be some things that happen that you would...
But also, sometimes, these people in these meetings, even if they don't give money, sometimes you're making someone's life a little okay. I know it's a lie, but at some point you get so sucked into all of this.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's the thing, is that, the argument is, the televangelist, getting your money. My dad called in one time.
To what?
To a televangelist,
Just
like
to know
asking
which
for
one?
money. No, some motherfucker that was just, like, he's like, repent now. And my dad called, he was hammered. He called up and he was like, will you tell that fucking scumbag that we'll pray for you? Like immediately. But he got to fucking scumbag before they cut him off. But the argument against that is, even with the televangelists, is that, if you're dupable enough to go into it, at least you are buying salvation, right? You are buying a product.
Right.
You
Yeah, I mean,
know?
it's hard to take anything good from any of that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, no. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think it's total, but it's a way of looking at it that I kind of understand people making that argument. Like,
Yeah.
if you go home with a fucking little pep in your step over it,
Right. Yeah,
I mean,
$5,
To pretty soon not having a home because you spent it all on
Well, there, yeah.
indulgences.
I'm buying them a plane.
all right. But it
Yeah.
is also the same thing as a lottery ticket or a goddamn, any kind of modern spiritual bullshit that is telling you
Oh, sure. I mean, it hasn't ended. There's
astrology or whatever the fuck you're
but
gonna.
specifically the sending in money. God, what is it called? The prosperity doctrine.
Mhm.
Kind of the Joel Osteen stuff, and there's a few other televangelists where they even if you don't even have the money to spend, call in and spend it, and you will see
Yeah.
it returned
Yeah.
upon you and your
Yeah, that
family
shit.
sevenfold, and people go fucking baroque.
Yeah.
What channels are these?
Right.
Well, I
the
don't.
777 Club?
Oh, it's on channel 777.
Yeah.
Cha-ching. Makes sense.
Oh yeah, the 700 Club.
700 Club.
That was
same idea.
That was one of the big ones.
Falwell?
No, was it with Robertson
Baker?
or Baker? Baker. I think Baker was the 700 Club guy. Yeah. Yeah, and he was the one that was also, I've seen.
My mascaras.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My wife is divine.
From Pink Flamingo.
Yeah, John Waters divine. She's shit.
She's dog shit. She's dog shit.
So they're in Ottawa, Illinois. This is 1861, 1862, 1863. And so they're renting out an entire boarding house, right? And one of the rooms, so there's some of the rooms being used for prostitution. Some of them are being used for, magnetic
Making
spiritual healing.
licks.
Well, one of the rooms was being used as a hospital, and Buck would have Tennessee, heal patients with his newest life elixir.
Uh-oh.
This was made with scent, sheep fat, and lye, mixed in an iron cauldron in the backyard.
Scent?
Scent.
Sheep fat.
Okay. What is scent?
What is scent?
It's a thing that adds scent. That could be anything.
Oh, so fragrance.
Yeah.
It was made with fragrance, sheep fat,
And
lye.
Yeah.
So it's soap.
Well, they asked Buck why he made it out of this, and he said, there are only 3 cures for cancer. Cut it out, poison it with arsenic, or burn it. I burn it.
Damn.
So one of his patients, this Miss Rebecca Howe,
It's gonna be a fire in your. It's gonna be a fire in your chest.
well, yes.
It tastes bad,
Yes.
but it works.
Smells good.
So one of these patients go to this woman named Rebecca Howe. She goes to him because she has breast cancer. And she goes to him, and Buck basically burns her breast off. And she goes home, and she hopes for a quick death.
God damn it.
And as she's laying in bed dying, she sees in the newspaper that apparently she has written a testimonial saying that Tennessee is one of the greatest healers in the world, and she's never felt better.
Oh, damn.
And that was Buck.
Wow.
And so she sees this, and
I'd give my left tit to see Tennessee again, and I did. Sincerely yours. What was her name?
Rebecca Howe.
Rebecca Howe.
But she comes out and tells the real story, and the whole town,
not thrilled.
no. So the marshals break the doors down. They go into the hospital wing, and they find what is this is Barbara Goldsmith's quote. I can't ever do this justice. Dying, unfed wrecks of humanity lying in their own excrement.
In the house where people are getting fucked, too?
Yeah, and getting their fortunes read and
Mhm.
shit.
One doctor said it was worse than Andersonville, which was one of the most notorious Civil War camps where 1 in 3 men died.
God damn it.
They're just running a hospital in a whorehouse?
There's a boarding house. They rented every room.
Oh, my God.
So Tennessee was charged with murder,
Oh, my gosh.
but the lawyer who was hired to write it up was in love with her, so he told her.
Are you
that
a
he was
hot,
gonna- he was gonna-
buxom blonde woman named Tennessee?
Oh my God.
So he was supposed to write it up, and he said, hey, I got to write this thing up. So the family heard that, and they skipped town.
Wow.
And this was, the heat of the Civil War, so it didn't take long for the town to have other worries.
Yeah. Jesus.
In this moment, Victoria takes her kids and moves to Chicago, where she opens a shop selling healing as well as advice on love and money and health. And, of course, a couple months later, the whole family shows up. They had just been kicked out of Cincinnati after competing with a brothel. And the quote, Madam English, the most notorious woman in Cincinnati, who was a brothel owner, who didn't like what they were doing and started a campaign to get it kicked out.
Wow.
There's only going to be one fuck house in this town.
There's not going to be any dying people in shit in it.
There might be some piss if you got the coin, but certainly no death and feces.
Yeah.
No.
If you have
Establishments
the
such as
gold,
mine.
you can afford a golden shower.
Some Gento, some B&D.
So now she's got the whole family with her. She's tired of hanging out with them, right? So she and Tenny and their fake doctor brother, they had a brother named, the fuck was his name? I forget what his name was, but he just called himself Doctor.
Yeah.
Oh God Almighty!
You know, John, I do that. But
I know, but
Yeah,
it's
but you're a
charming.
real doctor.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And so they just go on tour, going to different places and healing, and doing what they know. Without the life elixir, I believe that wasn't mentioned.
Huh.
And then on April 15th, 1865, while they're on this tour, they're riding through Philadelphia, and Tennessee, while sitting in a carriage, goes stone-faced and blurts out, "Tomorrow the whole nation will drape itself in mourning." The next day, Lincoln is shot.
Who says this?
Tennessee.
Tennessee is really good for not believing a word, huh?
According to Victoria.
It's all
Smoke and mirrors.
I mean, it sounds like she's like when she believes in it, but like Tennessee gets all the great predictions.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So they get back to Chicago. Victoria is tired. She goes off on her own again. She goes to St. Louis, where she calls herself Madame Holland. And it's there that she meets a man named Colonel James Harvey Blood.
Colonel Blood.
Colonel James Harvey Blood.
Yes. This is a man, he was in the Civil War. He was shot in the leg, went to the hospital. He's laying in his bed in the gurney, and he sees the piles of legs and arms. And he says, "Fuck this.
I'm opening a general store."
So he gets off the gurney. He goes back to his tent. He fishes the bullets out of his leg, survives,
Oh my God.
never has to fight again.
Wish I had a magnet. Where are these magnet healers now when Colonel Blood's got a piece of lead in his leg? Tell me, Victoria, where are all your magnets now? That Colonel Blood is writhing in pain. Heal me with your hands if you would.
I had to go fly fishing these bullets out of my
You're
whole
gonna just cut
leg.
my leg like it's some poor clit? I'm a colonel, goddammit. That ain't no clitoris, it's a left leg. Give me the forceps, I'll cut it out myself.
Oh, okay. Colonel Harvey James Blood? James Harvey.
James
Colonel
Harvey.
James Harvey Blood. Now,
James Harvey Blood.
Colonel Blood
Yeah.
in the tent with the forceps?
Yeah.
so he survives, and he would forever be haunted by these, but he would, because of his Civil War life, he always believed in spiritualism. And in St. Louis, he'd become the head of the St. Louis Society of Spiritualists. He was also a father and a man heavily in debt, and a husband. And
husband.
And Victoria has one story where she says that he went to just see her alone, but the real story is that he had brought his wife there, and then he became pretty entranced with her. But Victoria said upon meeting him, she said she had a vision and said, "Our destinies are bound together." And then the Chafflins are kicked out of Chicago.
Now, what happened this time?
I don't know. I don't remember what happened this time. But Tennessee takes this moment and she runs to St. Louis where Victoria is, and they both run off with Colonel Blood.
Tennessee and?
Victoria. Now Tennessee's not in love with him. Victoria's
No.
in love with him.
Okay.
And they're in love together. But Tennessee's like, you keep running off and it seems to be all right. I'm going to run off with you. 1866, she's 20. Victoria's 28. Her and Colonel Blood get married. 2 years later, they get divorced to protest the confinement of marriage. But they would never, ever say they were separated. And they would be together for the next 20-plus years.
Uh-huh.
And they were also both believers in free love.
Yes.
So they could do whatever they want,
Whatever they want.
but they would always come home to each other,
Yes.
and that's what
And
their relationship
Tennessee.
Were they fucking Tennessee?
was. No, they were not.
I bet. I bet they were.
Meanwhile, Utica's probably fucking a fucking tree stump somewhere. Doesn't know.
Byron's in the corner there. Ma? Zulu's painting it all on a canvas beautifully. I had a vision of love.
Oh man, what a troop, huh?
Uh-huh.
Wow, what a nutter.
So Around 1867 or so, they're riding through Pittsburgh when Victoria, she says they was on a, quote, temporary sojourn to Pittsburgh. She was sitting in a parlor of a boarding house when a spirit in a white toga came to her. And the spirit said, "Your work is about to begin. All of these years, we have been preparing you for a great mission. Go to New York, to 17 Great Jones Street. There you will find a house ready and waiting for you and yours." Then the vision filled the comfortable furniture, floated before her eyes. She saw bedrooms, parlors, stairs, front entry hall, where a large black book rested on a mahogany table. I'm reading from Barbara Goldsmith right now. Because the book lay upon the table. She could not read the title, but she asked the spirit, "Who are you? All these years you have never said, tell me now." And these letters were traced on the surface of the table, and they got brighter and brighter and burst into flames, and she read the name in fire, Demosthenes.
Dirk Diggler.
So,
It was Demosthenes, the same.
the first spirit she
She
ever
ever
met,
said-
ever
Oh.
after that aunt. And so she decides, let's go to New York City.
New York City?
And New York City in 1868 had 20,000 prostitutes. 1.3% of the population was prostitutes. Today, that would be about 100,000.
Wow.
And prostitution houses they were everywhere. And in fact, they made so much money that the prostitution houses would subsidize missions for women who were in trouble.
Good old days.
Right. Training camps.
Train?
But
Like said, they're like gonna lure them into prostitution.
Oh, right,
if you're in
right.
trouble.
Hey, are you a poor woman who's destitute, desperate, and previously a victim of abuse?
Yeah.
Come, we'll help you.
Right.
so, Victoria and Tennessee, they make their way up to New York City. And like all of my two-part stories, we're going to stop right there.
Right. Yeah, you
Ah.
stopped in New York last time. I knew
That's
you were
what I
going to
mean.
do that. I knew that.
Well,
I
you
knew-
gotta
You
stop
saw
in
it,
New
John.
York.
You see spirits.
I do. Yeah. Now was Colonel James Harvey Blood. Now was he going to come along?
Oh, he does.
Uh-huh.
And all the characters you could imagine.
Yeah, because I mean, every 10 minutes, I'm just going to go, what's going on with Utica?
Yeah.
Asking about some
Yeah.
hot girl from a
What's the
century
hot-
and a half ago.
She's still hot?
Yeah.
Because blood is thicker than water.
That's really good. That's a really fun time.
What a
Um,
setup, huh?
Really like it.
What a hardcore setup.
Yeah, it was a hardcore setup.
Yeah, huh?
Hardcore setup.
Very hardcore
Now
setup.
you have to imagine.
Spiritualism is rampant in the frontier here.
Prostitution is about.
It's more than about nutting and the exchange of currency. It's about women's liberation and empowerment. And so, these women are providing a service for a displaced male populace post-war, antebellum, postbellum, post-nut.
Now, what Buck was doing was preying on post-nut depression.
And you may sit there in your, I'm assuming, middle-class, liberal, Western democratic ideals. You gotta put yourself in the situation that these people are in at the time. There are invisible waves floating through the air carrying messages. The nation is at war. The South has been burned to a crisp. And Victoria Woodhull says, quote,
Ghosts are everywhere. Everyone should nut.
I'm gonna fuck my husband and whoever else I want, and anyone who doesn't like it, well, they can get right out, end quote. Matt, that was really
That was so good. That was so much fun.
Just wait, part two.
Part two, you guys.
Holy shit.
If you're not all jacked up on laudanum and whiskey, you know,
Maybe the spirit will move you.
yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait to find out the rest of all that. What a mess.
Yes.
Total
what a
nightmare.
fucking mess. I mean,
It's just the amount of traveling time that the whole family is doing.
But
Like, they're
also-
traveling on stagecoach.
but like a jet black, you know, just like bleak world of genital mutilation and every man is an abuser and everybody's chemically dependent and every parent abuses and every husband abuses. On top of the civil goddamn war.
Yeah. It was a nightmare.
What a fucking catastrophe.
Yeah.
Like the good men went to the war, and the other guys were like,
Yeah.
"Man, now's our chance."
And they all died.
Here we go.
That's just the weirdest thing about she once became she was an advocate for eugenics, right? But the thing about like war, we talk about our best and brightest, and then we send them off to die. Like,
right.
It's been seen in like
You wanted an army of Byrons.
That's not what I'm getting at, but it's kind of what I'm getting at. Like, was it World War I that a quarter of the male population of Europe died?
Probably, yeah,
I think it was World War I.
Yeah.
And you have, and in the American Civil War, it was more deaths than any other war previous to that, and that was
like 50,000 men in a day.
Exactly
Right.
right. So you are changing something about the breeding pool.
And they
Right,
were,
yeah.
And we is because of the Civil War we changed the policy that an entire town becomes a regiment. Because if a whole regiment's wiped out, that's the
That's the
entire
town.
that's half,
Right,
That's
yeah.
half the population. That's all the men in the town.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's there's stories in
And then what's left behind, right, is the most,
Byron.
cowardly and cunning sons of bitches,
Right.
too.
The guys
Right.
are like, women, we can't let
The
these
guys-
women take over.
Right, and also the guys you hope died in the war if
Yeah.
you're a woman, right?
Yeah.
You're like, the fucking, the Joffreys always survive,
Right, right.
Like,
It's very interesting. There was a story of these like baboons in Africa that used to that lived around a resort. Not resort's not the right word, but a resort. And they would they had the alpha baboons who would always like get all like the best scraps and shit. But then there was some like bad food that was tossed out by the resort, like tainted, like poisoned. And all the alpha baboons got all that shit. They got all that food and they ate it all for themselves. And then they all died.
right.
And so like that local baboon society was forever changed because it wiped out all those alpha baboons.
Yeah.
And what was left were like these, I don't want to say like cuck baboons because they were much more like nice and not timid or weak or anything, but it was just like a much more civil baboon society because
Right.
all of like the super hyper aggressive baboons were wiped out by monopolizing all the tainted food that was thrown out
Yeah.
by the resort. And you just think like, fuck, man, when you're sending off scores of people, of men to die, like you're doing something, right? There's got to be some downstream effects generations down the road.
Right. Well, there's also this effect that I was just thinking about today, synchronicity, whatever.
Thinking you?
But it was about how, when there was the Protestant paramilitaries in Northern Ireland, the Ulster Defence Association had a whole ton of their leadership assassinated by the IRA, and they were high-profile targets, right? But they were also, you would say, the wizened and learned, esteemed. So the entire leadership of the UDA became like the thugs on the street now.
Right.
So you had a more vicious, ruthless killing machine without any kind of like tempered, political direction. And it was like this thing of like, killing your way to a worse enemy.
Right. Great.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just like all of that. And anytime there's like that,
it's the same thing that happened with Iraq, right? You get rid of Saddam and ISIS.
you
and
create ISIS.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So is that what we're doing here? Or is it on you now? Now let me ask you.
Now, did every man that died in the war have a magnet in his dick?
Everything's pointing.
It is pointing true north.
Appomattox.
Well, mine a little bit northwest. If I'm gonna be honest with you.
All right, let's pick it up next time. Guys, please join us. I can't wait to find out what the fuck happens here.
Yeah, we are just honestly by the time you all are listening to this, we're gonna be balls deep in the Northern California woods.
Right.
We're actually a few hours away from being there ourselves. It's late at night, and we're gonna be there doing profiles research and
Oh yeah, and
all sorts of
hanging
shit.
out in no cell phone land.
yeah. But do send us if you want to get a call from a cabin in the woods.
Yeah,
From your 3 favorite freaks,
yeah. If you see any weird numbers pop up, it's probably us.
pick that shit up.
Yeah,
Don't say AT&T likely scam, telemarketer, whatever.
yeah.
It's us.
It's us.
We're
Just
gonna,
trust.
We're just gonna tuck you.
Just trust.
We're just
Yeah.
gonna tuck you in.
Right. We're just gonna say goodnight and be like, just thinking about you. You know, just want to say, goodnight.
How's Utica?
All right, I'm gonna say goodnight. My name is John Fahey.
My name's Aaron Pita.
Meproso.
Good night, everybody. I love you.
Good night.